WVEC TV, plan.
Here we go.
This is Jim Kincaid, ABC News.
Prince Sultan Air Base is an active United States Air Force expeditionary base operating in Saudi Arabia and assigned to the U.S. Air Force's Central Command. Photographer Doug Seney and I got a rare chance to visit the kingdom in 1998 as the U.S. tried to keep the peace in the Middle East in the years right before 9/11. This was our Emmy-nominated documentary about that journey, Stretched Too Thin.
Hello and welcome to our show. I'm Mike Gooding. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be exploring the question, are they stretched too thin? We're talking, of course, about our nation's armed forces, specifically the Air Force, which, like all branches of the military these days, is being asked to do much more with much less. We begin with the people on what the brass likes to call the tip of the spear, the front lines, the pilots, and the people who must maintain their aircraft. Both jobs we found out recently in Saudi Arabia are neither as glamorous nor as fun as they used to be. From the Martian-like landscape they rise, F-15s out of Langley Air Force Base. Day after day they roar from Prince Sultan Air Base in central Saudi Arabia, 500 miles north to the 32nd parallel over Iraq, enforcing United Nations Resolution 688, maintaining an ongoing no-fly zone. The mission dates all the way back to the coalition forces' victory in Operation Desert Storm in 1991, and there's still no end in sight today.
We're here because the national interests of our country are at stake. Stability in the region is in large part maintained because of our presence and our ability to fly these missions day in, day out.
During the war, the U.S. assembled a massive group of allies united against Saddam Hussein. Now it's down to three: the United States, France, and Great Britain.
I think the UK's mission is that we will stay here as long as it takes to make sure that he complies with those UN resolutions. And if that takes years, then I think we'll be here for years. And that's really what we're paid for.
Although beaten in the war, Saddam still makes for a resourceful adversary, playing a constant game of cat and mouse with Air Force pilots.
Saddam's not militarily foolish. He will move his assets around. He probably suspects that we know where certain things are and would like to not have those destroyed, things such as that. So things do move, and we try our best to keep up with it.
So they're here in the desert on a 250 square mile makeshift base in the sand, living in tents where host country Saudi Arabia does not even allow an American flag to be flown. It has, of course, been 7 years since the U.S.-led coalition defeated Saddam Hussein in the Persian Gulf War, yet he's still in business. He won't live forever, of course, but for now, as long as he remains a threat, America is apparently here to stay. And for many Air Force pilots, like Captain John Mahaley of Langley's 27th Fighter Squadron, repeatedly returning to this part of the world is getting real old real fast.
While we're here, I don't really see the actions of Iraq changing at all. But what I do see is the disintegration of the Air Force.
Indeed, Air Force pilot retention is in a tailspin. Just 1 in 10 flyers is accepting a 6-year commitment beyond their initial obligations. Mahaley still loves flying. He clearly loves Dana, but he doesn't much love the Air Force anymore.
It's tough to see when you see your skills eroding and when you endlessly bore holes through the sky. So it kind of sours you after a while, knowing that you're really here doing nothing, maintaining the status quo, and that takes a lot of the wind out of your sails.
Never gets old. Never gets old. You always, each mission, something new comes up.
For some, the gusto is still there. The thrill of flying still counts for something, even though they have to keep coming back to the desert time and time again, trying to keep Saddam Hussein in check.
He's certainly given us reason to stay. It'd be nice if he'd just behave properly and we could all go home. But yeah, we're disappointed every time that the situation with him turns a negative way, because of course that requires us to stay longer.
So off they go into the wild blue yonder, like it or not.
After doing this for a while, you just are able to tune out the distractions and focus on what you're doing out there.
There's even a few Navy guys out here flying EA-6B Prowlers. They join some of their Air Force counterparts in questioning just what the U.S. is still doing here.
I was here for Desert Storm, and I'm surprised that we're still here. But you know, we have a job to do, and I have orders to carry out, and we're here, and we'll carry out our mission.
For many of the pilots here in Saudi Arabia, there's a certain attitude of been there, done that. They were in Operation Desert Storm 7 years ago, and being here now isn't much of a big deal. And then there's the new guys. Guys like Lieutenant Des Salaji, who just joined Langley's 27th Fighter Squadron in April.
I mean, this is my first time away from the wife, first time in a war zone, and so it's, yeah, you're nervous. You're nervous coming. We have no idea what it's going to be like.
For most out here, though, young or old, stressful conditions in Saudi Arabia are taking a toll. They see a lack of mission prestige. They're just tired of coming back, time and time again.
In the case of the Air Force, we're doing about 4 times as many overseas deployments as with about 2/3 of the force, so obviously there's a lot of stress on folks.
Acting Air Force Secretary F. Whitten Peters says he hears the complaints loud and clear, and the time for action is now.
People are telling us that the pace is too hectic, and they are not having fun anymore. So in that sense, you know, we are stretched thin, and we need to reorganize ourselves.
There are things which just can't be reorganized, though, like the blistering sun taking its brutal toll on the hundreds of aircraft stationed out here in an unforgiving desert. There are, of course, a number of problems with working out here in the desert. The heat, for example, it's been over 100 degrees every day this week. But for the Air Wing, one of the biggest problems of all is parts. They can't get enough of them, they just don't have them. Fully 35% of the aircraft from Langley's 1st Fighter Wing based here don't work. Of the 18 F-15 Eagles stationed here, just 12 are now functioning. The others can't be flown. And for the people who must fix them, the enthusiasm level is not exactly overwhelming.
You have a mission here, I guess. Yeah, I guess it would be more important here than just trading back home.
The biggest problem we have here are parts. We don't have sister squadrons to draw from, like at Langley, where we have the other 2 squadrons, so we all help each other.
It's Captain Monty Deal's job as the 27th Fighter Squadron's maintenance officer to figure out a way, somehow, to get as many of the nearly 2-decade-old airplanes as possible airborne. So what he does is cannibalize the non-working planes to keep the others going. This F-15, for example, has been grounded for 32 straight days.
We still have aircraft that have as many as 40 parts out of them that we have to take just to keep other aircraft flying.
On this day, 6 jets from the 27th Fighter Squadron are supposed to fly over Iraq. 2 never get off the ground. Their engines fail to fire. So backup planes are used instead. The mission goes on.
We work with what we've got and try to do the best we can.
What do you make of it? I mean, is it just the way it is in 1998?
I think so. The fleet's just getting old. All the jets are getting old. The part supply is just getting a little more scarce, and we just try to do the best we can. It just seems like the more time goes on, the harder it is to sort of keep these babies running.
And combat ready, just in case 7 years after the war, combat is ever actually called for again. For the thousands of people living out in the desert, security remains a key issue. They're in one of the most dangerous places in the world where, unfortunately, terrorism can be an everyday fact of life. For Air Force security forces out there, their job is to somehow, whether they're stretched thin or not, figure out a way to keep everyone safe.
Charlie 1 Bravo, Charlie 1, you have 1 coalition vehicle for search.
It could be the most secure 250 square miles in the world, and with good reason. 2 years ago, 19 airmen were killed in a terrorist bombing at Khobar Towers in Dhahran. Thus was born Prince Sultan Air Base, new home to the U.S. Air Force in the Persian Gulf, located on a remote patch of desert where nothing even close to civilization is anywhere near.
I can't get lackadaisical at all. I have to stay sharp.
They're in what they call ThreatCon Charlie state of alert. That means the Defense Department thinks a terrorist attack could happen here at any time. So they have checkpoint after checkpoint, mile upon mile of barbed wire and concrete jersey walls that make any kind of high-speed escape all but impossible.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's the one place where a cop can do cop work. This is what we were trained for, and after 19 years, I finally get a chance to use it full-fledged.
A problem unique to this air base is the number of non-Americans who do business here, supplying food, gas, and water to the base. Because the land is owned by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Saudi nationals are allowed to come on board every day, presenting potential security risks. One big problem, the language barrier.
Do you like the Americans? Do you like the Americans?
I don't understand.
Don't understand? It's Sergeant Percy Thompson's job to inspect all foreign nationals' vehicles. He says communicating with non-English speaking people can be tough.
It makes it difficult, but not too difficult because we still control this base.
In all, 60 to 70 cars and trucks per day are checked. And just in case a suspected terrorist slipped past the car check, just up the road, a big machine gun awaits.
You guys are cleared to do whatever it takes to keep the base safe?
Yes, we shoot to disable the vehicle.
Try to go for lesser force as possible, but sometimes these other force is needed.
We have taken great effort in providing the force protection that we feel is necessary to ensure that our people can operate here daily safely.
Some 4,500 Americans call this place out here in the middle of nowhere home. And given what happened a few years ago at Khobar Towers, and given what happened just this year at the 2 American embassies, the mission for the U.S. security forces here is clear, making sure that no one who's not supposed to be getting in or out of that gate does. When they're deployed in the Persian Gulf, they are, after all, in a potential war zone, and that means the very real possibility of casualties. And that's where the 4404th Medical Unit comes in a place that's not especially hospitable anyway, and in a place where our armed forces are already stretched rather thin. They have a huge job, keeping thousands of our Air Force personnel healthy, and sometimes a little more. With all the bedside manner of a modern-day Florence Nightingale and then some, Captain Lelania Secreti makes her rounds.
I'll take your blood pressure.
A friendly face in a sometimes unfriendly desert. This is the 4404th Mobile Hospital in Saudi Arabia. Secreti sort of moonlights at this. A flight surgeon by trade, her main job is making sure Langley's flyers are fit to fly.
It's kind of like a preventative health. Aerospace medicine is more, you just try to keep them healthy on the ground.
She's one of 12 physicians, a dentist, and 7 nurses here who make this place fly. 25 beds in all, it's a full-service hospital without the walls, where the people who work here feel they can do it all.
We have that special medical capability. We have a surgeon that is capable of handling mass casualty problems as we run into it.
Medical technician Catherine Bricker's hands were full this day dealing with 20-year-old Antonio Mack and his inability to get a good night's sleep.
It's very common for Saudi. It's something just because we do such a rapid change in their environment and their work conditions and the weather that it sometimes wreaks a little bit of havoc on their system.
The men and women of the 4404th deal with more than just the usual heat exhaustion, dehydration, and sunburn. When the twin embassy bombings happened earlier this year, these people were the first American medical personnel to arrive on the scene in Kenya and care for victims.
It was actually one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, and I truly mean that we were able to help the people from Nairobi and also go and assess patients and actually be in a situation, ground zero area of a major catastrophe, and all that training and all the training and all the trauma patients that I see and all the scenarios in the world can't prepare you for what you see, the carnage you see when there's a bomb that goes off like that.
And for some, it may have been a life-changing experience.
Then suddenly, it starts to hit you. You get really sad because you see all these people being hurt for nothing. So you don't understand and start to question yourself, why we let this happen?
Comparisons to MASH are, of course, unavoidable around here. You half expect to see Hawkeye or Trapper John come popping out of the woodwork. But the work the people do here is no joke. In fact, this is the only American surgical hospital on the entire Arabian Peninsula. A pretty important fact out here where sometimes things can get down to life and death. Are we stretched low thin?
I think we are, Mike. We're going back to the Gulf about every 6 months, as you saw when you were over there on your trip. And then while we're home, the tempo doesn't really slack off much. We now have to take those pilots and spin them back up to speed training-wise. So they'll do things like red flag exercises out at Nellis. They need to shoot live ordnance, live missiles and gun occasionally, so they'll go down to the weapons system evaluation program down at Tyndall Air Force Base. So it's a pretty hectic pace when they get home as well.
What do you foresee as you look in your crystal ball down the next couple of years, 5, 10 years?
Well, we're hoping that we've kind of reached the bottom in terms of both mission capable rates for the aircraft as well as retention, not only for the pilots but for some of our key enlisted folks, our maintainers out on the flight line, avionics folks, communicators, security forces. So we hope that, again, an improved retirement system will help them stay in. We're also offering a number of those folks bonuses as well as the pilots, so we're hoping that will encourage them to stay in as well and to provide some stability to the force that we otherwise don't have.
As you might have already guessed, conditions for our Air Force personnel living and working in Saudi Arabia are less than desirable, and their patience and good humor are being stretched thin. It's not exactly a desert oasis, but once the sun sinks low on this place they call Tent City, the joint rocks.
I see a bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad times today.
For some, like Technical Sergeant Mike Smith, there's not much to do but bust out the axe and make time go by in Saudi Arabia.
That's the only good thing about this deployment, if you want to think of it as good. So I don't know. Sorry.
Others do the best they can with athletic pursuits.
Kind of like it here. It's nice weather, about 110 degrees every day or whatever. And lots of spiders and stuff to crawl in bed with you at night or whatever if they get a chance. And other than that, it's not too bad. It's a pretty nice place to live.
You sell it at nickel? All right, Jack's in for a nickel.
Yay! Way to go, Jack.
Go, Jack. Okay, round 2. Jack.
Jack.
King.
Hello.
Oh! No.
Nope. Queen can't be wild, so the next.
Queen's not wild?
7.
Wild.
Wow, possible flush over there.
Others go for cards.
It's not real fun. You just kind of get used to it. You get into a routine.
There's darts, there's jogging, all exercises in keeping those calendar pages turning. Then there are the everyday challenges, like when the water runs out.
It's not like home.
It's hot and it's sandy. Living conditions, you're sleeping about 8 to a tent. The food is probably not the best in the world, that's for sure. And just work.
That's the best. That's the main thing here is keeping the morale high. And it would be a lot better if we could have a much sooner rotation than 120 days. But but the amount of work that we do on a day-to-day basis really goes very faster.
So they work on their laundry skills.
If I wasn't here, definitely the wife would be doing the laundry. Then again, I don't know. I might have to give her a couple of dollars.
And they watch live broadcasts of American football at odd hours. And they get laughs where they can to somehow get through it all. Several miles away, they're putting the finishing touches on a new $117 million Friendly Forces housing compound. Looks something like a prison, but there's no tents anyways, and even some of the comforts of home. And it's all being built, get this, by the family of suspected terrorist Osama bin Laden. The first troops are to move in soon.
But until that day comes, this will remain their home away from home. All 1.3 square miles of canvas, inconvenience, and despite it all, somehow, a sense of community.
And yes, a sense of humor.
Some people claim that old Bill Clinton's to blame, but I know it's Monica's fault. I'm sorry.
We began our program with a question. Are they stretched too thin? Well, if not, they're pretty darn close. Over the last 10 years, the Air Force has seen a drop in its troop strength from 607,000 to 371,000. So we end with a question. What's our nation going to do about it? All you can say about that right now is stay tuned. I'm Mike Gooding. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.